Welcome to the Soul Archaeology podcast, a space for connection, resonance, witnessing, and learning. Together we'll harvest medicine from the spiral of life, sharing conversations with other embodied humans who have navigated their own initiations and found alignment with their true soul essence. With weekly astrology, energy updates, embodied conversation, and channeled teachings, this is a space for you to land and find resonance with the spiral of your own soul. Hello, welcome back to Soul Archaeology. And what a wild time we find ourselves within. I feel like I say that every week, but it really is so amazing to me where we are. And if you haven't listened to episode 139, the last episode, I highly recommend you go back, even 138, 137, because they all sort of work together. Each one of them builds upon one another. So I highly recommend doing that if you haven't. So just pausing this and going back, because there's so much I would like to cover and there's only so much time. And I don't want to make these episodes super long. The last episode was long because it's such an important time, and that the transits of last week were so wild and so impactful. I wanted to make sure I gave it enough space. And this is sort of a recalibration week. We have some significant transits that are activating, but we also have this deep Mercury Retrograde that's unfolding. So last week was incredibly electric and fast. And this week we get pulled into a Mercury Retrograde. So we're in the shadow. We've been in the shadow for a few weeks now. And we find ourselves in a recalibration of the mind, of our psyche, of our intuition, subconscious. So on February 25th, we have Mercury begin its retrograde phase in Pisces. And then on February 27th, we have Mars square Uranus. That same day, the Sun meets with the North Node. And then on February 28th, we have Mercury, which is retrograde in Pisces, meeting with Venus in Pisces. So as Mercury slows down, Venus catches up, and we have this meeting of these two inner planets in the sign of Pisces. And this week is really like a corridor. It's a recalibration. It's a space where we are asked to really go back into our toolbox of Pisces. We've been in deep Piscean studies. We've been curating our toolbox related to Pisces over the last few years. And now we have all of this fiery Aries energy. We have more of a sympathetic heat. And like I said, I would recommend going back into the last few episodes to learn more about that. But if you have and you're here, then you know that Piscean era was so important and impactful. It really primed us for this launch period that we're in. So I think that this stellium that we have in Pisces with Mercury retrograde in Pisces is inviting us into sort of a softer launch into this Aries era, giving us space to sort of feel into and sense into what we want to create, what we're materializing, what we're manifesting, while still cultivating these tools connected to surrender and trust and faith. And Pisces, of course, isn't related to the root, but it is related to the feet. And I think of Pisces as, in its highest expression at least, a very grounding energy. And when I say grounding, I don't mean earth because it's mutable water, but I mean that it holds this imprint of faith and hope and surrender and holding. The web of Pisces is the Christ consciousness. It's the grid that we're all connected to, that we really make up. And this web of unconditional love, this is Christ consciousness. And so the beautiful work when working with Pisces is finding a sense of softness and surrender and trust in that greater web, in that fabric that we all belong to, and letting our soul, ourselves rest within that web, knowing we're safe, we're held, we're loved, we're connected, we belong, that there is an entire universe, another co-creative force that's working in our favor, that wants us to succeed, that we are not alone. And so I think when we can sort of master the Piscean part of our chart, we can access a deepened sense of faith, trust, surrender, calm, peace. We can feel our feet on the earth, on the ground, knowing that being in this human form, on this physical plane, with our feet, with our legs, connected to this grid of unconditional universal love and belonging is our birthright, that we can be of this earth and of source. And Pisces is mutable water, so it has this liminality, this essence of being in between, or at the end of something and at the beginning of something else. It's the last sign of the zodiac. We've been in Pisces season for a week now. So we are at the edge of something. We're at the end of something. We have Saturn and Neptune in Aries, but the astrological new year doesn't begin until the end of March. So we're still at this threshold. If you listen to my 2026 forecast workshop, then you know April is a big month. I highly recommend going back and listening to that workshop. If you haven't, it's linked in the show notes. It's just really helpful it's a helpful guide and resource for navigating 2026 and really understanding the energetic imprint of this year, of 2027, what we're moving into, because really this year is a preparatory year for 2027. And so, although there's a lot of movement, a lot more than we've had over the last 5 or 6 years, there still is this back and forth to some degree. And we are ending and closing a chapter in March and beginning another in April, which brings me to, before I drop into the energy of this week, my group cohort, which is called The Vessel. And I still have a few spaces available for this cohort, this group mentorship. We begin April 3rd. So we begin with the astrological new year. And we're really carrying the imprint of new beginnings, expansion, growth, potential into this vessel. And I created this group mentorship because I have been working with people one-on-one for many years now. I've worked with hundreds of women one-on-one in really intentional ways. I've seen so many different patterns play out in the people I work with, and it's been such a gift and such an honor. And I've been called to create a group container for a while. I understand why it's waited until now, because having a container and a vessel for transformation allows the growth to unfold in a way that's sustainable, that's embodied, that has longevity. And because this year carries this major imprint of change and transformation, I was guided to create a group mentorship for those of us who are in this growth, in this expansion, but kind of need a vessel or a container for it. When we grow and expand in a contained way, our manifestations, our growth is felt and seen on the physical plane in a more tangible, embodied way. And this is one of the pillars of rites of passage work, that you have a container or a vessel you have witnessing to see you through these change or growth portals. So we meet for an entire year, 2 times per month as a group. We begin with the astrological new year and move into the beginning of 2027, which is exactly what I wanted, because the bridge between 2026 and 2027 is going to be wild and electric and incredibly profound. So I'm very excited to walk with this group. It's already the most amazing group of women. I am so grateful and so excited. And if you're interested, I would love to have you there. If you would like, you can also book a clarity call that's linked in my show notes, and we can talk through whether or not it's a good fit for you. This is a very intimate, curated space, so if it's calling for a reason. And this week is a corridor. We are, like I said, at the edge of something. We're in Pisces season. We are in the liminal, but we are also in between eclipses. So this week in particular is truly a liminal week. I've talked to so many people who are feeling spacey, floaty, like they can sense and feel that something's changing and shifting on a more subterranean level, but it might not be showing up on the physical plane. You might be noticing a lot on the physical plane that's changing, shifting, moving in and out, but it might feel sort of unanchored or intangible even. So we're in between eclipses, which means we're between identities, between narratives, between versions of self. And eclipses are karmic accelerators. They close loops. They open loops. They reset the energy, our karmic energy, our evolutionary path for the next 6 months. Eclipses are wild karmic storms because they are new or full moons connected to the lunar nodes, which are nodes of destiny or karma. They tell us where we've been and what we're here for. My North and South Node course, Inner Compass, is a great way to understand your personal North and South Node. That's available in the show notes as well. And right now we have the transiting South Node in Virgo and North Node in Pisces. So like I said, we have been in a deep study of what it means to live in the high vibration of Pisces. Pisces has been our guiding light since January of 2025. We've also had Saturn and Neptune at the late degrees of Pisces over the last few years. And now we have a Mercury retrograde in Pisces. Next week, on March 3rd, we have a lunar eclipse in Virgo. So we are in this work, some of the most profound work, the work of understanding when we move, when we try to control, and when we let go, when we surrender. How to move from aligned action, which is operating from a deep, deep sense of trust and faith, as well as mental focus. Virgo, so much of what is happening right now is fated. It's so important we don't drop into the South Node in Virgo, which wants to control, wants to contort, wants to manipulate the energy in our favor. And this could be just coming from a scared part that's operating from fear, a younger part that never understood or had the development to lead from faith and trust, lead without fear. I've been feeling this so much lately, and I'm curious if this resonates with you, any of you, that so many of the choices I've made throughout my life were not conventional or even recommended. So many of the choices and decisions and life pivots I've made were unconventional. It's the best way I can put it. And now I'm understanding why. And these can be macro or micro moments and choices. And, you know, some of them are learning experiences. I'm a 3-line in human design manifesting generator. So I just have to do things my own way and try them out. But other things have been incredibly aligned, even though there was no proof of that on the physical plane. I have a North Node in Pisces, a South Node in Virgo. So I have had to, time and time again, trust fall into the great unknown. I've had to choose something that I knew deep in my bones intuitively was right and correct for me, but looked nothing like what anyone else was doing around me. And I've been in a deep relationship, a committed relationship with trust and faith and God over the last 10 years at least. And I've made decisions that did not look realistic or even right to others on the physical plane. And I've had to just sit with that and love that and trust that within myself. And now I'm understanding why. And it's not even just this big revelation. It's these little micro revelations that I'm experiencing and feeling now. And it's incredibly comforting. So this is just to say that sometimes we don't get the confirmation we need right away. Sometimes we have to trust fall without knowing where that net looks like or where it is or whether or not it will actually catch us or if we trust fall for longer than we expected. But I do think that there is almost always a time when we receive that confirmation that we made the choice that was right and best for us and our very own unique path. The time of binary thinking in black and white, this is good and this is bad, is dissolving. We're moving into an era where people have to operate from their own sovereign truth channel and making choices from that intuitive space that might not make sense to others. This is why it's so important not to judge other people's decisions and life choices, because seeing through this very binary black and white, this is good and this is bad lens means that someone's bad for making a choice that you wouldn't make. But that's usually coming from a very young part of us that's potentially intimidated or afraid to make that same choice, or maybe can't even enter into the space with that other person and their thought process and patterns. But this also keeps us quite small. And I think that's what this Aquarius season has been teaching us, is that we have to expand outside of these black and white boxes. It's just, they're outdated. They don't work anymore. This good or bad binary way of thinking is not going to get us out of the problem that we created through binary thinking. And this time is about expanding outside of that and leaning into what feels maybe unfamiliar. And this doesn't mean we have to throw ourselves off a ledge and into the great unknown. I don't recommend that people take giant leaps when there are few resources, because if you worked with me, you know that I'm not here to tell you to go spend a bunch of money you don't have or to quit your job when you don't have a savings fund, because that can be incredibly destabilizing and actually work against you in the end. We need resourced aligned action, but that might require a leap of faith too. And I think that we're all going to be facing giant leaps of faith over the next few years. And so looking at how you're resourced, what's resourcing for you, what tools, rituals, practices, prayers, movement practices, somatic practices, workouts, embodiment practices, what really works for you? What connects you with your body? What connects you with your root? What connects you with your feet? We need these so that we can take these leaps of faith that are really quantum leaps or portals into big growth. I feel like I kind of went on a tangent there, but this is just to say that I've been noticing in my own life these little glimmers or these little gifts that say, that's why you did it this way. And thank you, God, for that, because I have been in a big old trust fall for a long time. So I'm grateful for these, and I'm here to master the Piscean realm. I'm here to master my North Node in Pisces. So I'm here for it, but it can be scary. So I'm curious if you are all experiencing that as well, just in even little tiny micro ways. So back to this week, we have Mercury Retrograde in Pisces beginning on February 25th. So Mercury, the planet of communication, travel, the messenger of the gods, is stationing retrograde in the sign of Pisces. And just a refresher, retrogrades are when we enter the underworld of that planet's domain. So we're in the underworld of Mercury, belief systems, communication, our mental fields. Retrogrades are when we are spiraling into our own subconscious. It's a descent. So we're drawing the energy inward, revealing what's suppressed, fragmented, what needs light so that we can emerge more whole, more integrated. It draws us deeper into ourselves to reclaim and shed light on what's shadowed, seeking the light of our own consciousness. We have a flashlight in our subconscious. And we have these periods of descent, typically 3 Mercury retrogrades per year. Other planets go retrograde. Venus, Mars, we experienced those last year. The outer planets retrograde. But we experience these times as an inward journey. So it's helping us to reclaim self and cross a threshold new. We're doing this deep work within our subconscious and then emerging with a new perspective new insight, new information. It is a recalibration of the mind. And with Mercury retrograding through Pisces, this is about clarifying our intuition, going into the deep chambers where we hold fear around surrender, around loss, around endings. We are rerouting our inner GPS, as my somatic school sent an email out last week and said that. And I was like, that's exactly what this Mercury retrograde is about. We are recalibrating our internal compass, our psychic space, rearranging the furniture, moving things around, clearing old narratives and stories and fear narratives. This is about the mind unlearning itself. Where are we afraid to expand into the unknown? Where are we afraid to push a thought or a belief or a theory? When Mercury turns retrograde in Pisces, the mind really stops functioning as a machine and starts functioning as a tide, an intuitive tide. The mind becomes more permeable. While in Aquarius, Mercury was more future-oriented. It was conceptual. It was abstract. Now in Pisces, the mind becomes more porous, more permeable. Time bends, memory blurs, timelines merge. Dreams are heightened, which I know a lot of you are experiencing right now, as am I. The subconscious really speaks. A lot of Mercury retrograde periods are times of correction, going back into something, revisiting, recalibrating, going back into an experience that we didn't quite get right the first time around. Old relationships surfaced, where we have fragmentation of the mind related to past experiences, and how we can bring that up and bring that in order to integrate it. Pisces is the final sign, and it holds the residue of every experience that came before. So this is a good time to do subconscious work. This is a good time to utilize your dream space as a malleable field of potential. We are in an incredibly malleable time. I recommend going back to episode 138, 139. Once again, sorry, I keep saying that, but because I talk a lot about how the energy is malleable and how we can work with our reality in a completely new way now. And so what's coming up for you? A lot of people are hitting these thresholds of fear. When we meet a threshold, when we meet a growth edge, fear comes up. Fear of the expansion, fear of the unknown, fear of failure, whatever it is. Work with this through this portal. We're going to be in Mercury retrograde and eclipse season over the next month. So this is a perfect time to start some new work. Or if you're in a container or if you're working with someone and it feels really supportive, amazing. You're right on time. The other part of this Mercury retrograde in Pisces is that it's ruled by Neptune. So Neptune is ruling this Mercury retrograde. Neptune's at the 0 degrees of Aries point. So we're at a point of sobering. So this Mercury retrograde is bringing us into the ways that we might be in self-deception, romanticism, spiritual bypassing, fantasy, illusion. It's also, on the flip side, showing us where we have deep intuitive intelligence, deep psychic knowing. It's here to help us really sharpen our psychic abilities, our intuitive abilities. Where are you placing your trust right now? At the end of the week, Mercury meets with Venus as well. So we're going to be brought into some deep relational layers as well. We are reworking the relational field, our relational framework. We're going back into old stories and narratives, experiences from our relational field, and reworking them so that we can create new patterns of expansion and love and alignment rather than fear and wounding. This is going to bring up boundary work because Pisces struggles with boundaries. I'll just say it. Venus and Pisces struggles with boundaries. It can be total transcendent love. It can also be trauma bonding. So this is important to look at. Where have you been deceived that love was unconditional or transcendent when it was actually a trauma bond? Venus in Pisces wants unconditional love. Aries wants clarity. Mercury retrograde wants truth. So all of this is shining a light on where we've confused fantasy with reality, where we have blurred boundaries in our relationships, where we are living in illusion. All of this is layered with the fact that we are between eclipses. And we also have a Mars-Uranus square. So there's a lot here that's bringing up material. There's tension, there's tightness with this Mars-Uranus square. There's something that we're meant to break out of this week. And there's this liminality too, so it can feel a little wobbly, but it's meant to be clarifying. So you might need more space this week. You might need more alone time. I think Mercury retrogrades are perfect for clearing your schedule, taking more space to be in the bath, to be by water, to be showering, to be alone, to be in thought, to be in meditation. This is not a time to plan a bunch of functions, a bunch of events, social engagements. This is where you get to go in and fine-tune your mental field with this new timeline that we're moving into. We are clearing and cleaning the subconscious field. It's not a time to grip. It's a time to notice. And I personally am in a trust fall. I'm just like, whatever's meant to play out will play out. I am not gripping to anything. I am trusting the universe because we have to trust our co-pilot. And the card that I pulled today from the Untamed Elemental deck for the Soul Archaeology community is the Mountain card. And it's all about alignment. It says, vertical master's piece of the natural world, Mountain obtains cosmic access and conducts the steadfast life force rooted in the center of the earth. He entices us with his rigids and vistas and demands coherence between conviction and action. He is proud of the statuesque prominence embodying incorruptible dignity. Wisdom cultures have long been attracted to the wild embrace of mountains' range of summits and extreme climates and the exploration of spiritual elevation and states of absolute consciousness. Mountain urges you to focus on your alignment, particularly as it relates to your spine, just as Mountain establishes a coherence of flow between planetary and cosmic energies. Your spine both avails you to earth frequencies and ensures you have access to heightened wisdom. Maintaining healthy alignment in your vertebra will keep your body vital, your intuition activated, and your dignity intact. Our souls are honed by our physical systems, and your spine is an instrument through which you can manifest greatness. When it's balanced, you feel immaculate alignment between conviction and action. When it's imbalanced, you feel directionless, like a lack of clarity or purpose, chronic back pain. To bring into balance, activate your essential self by embodying Mountain's unwavering dignity and stillness. I love this card. It's so beautiful. I'm so grateful you're here. Thank you for your support. Thank you for listening each week. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing the work. Thank you for sharing on social media. If you would like to support Soul Archaeology, that would be so wonderful and lovely of you. You can do so by donating on my website. I have it linked in the show notes. You can also join my Substack. It's $8 a month. It's such a beautiful way to support the production of this podcast. I don't have sponsors. I do it all on my own. I pay for it all on my own. So if you listen each week, $8 a month would be I'd be so appreciative of it. And I have a link for the Substack in my show notes as well. So I do some deeper dives over there. I post twice a month, and they're kind of deeper astrological dives, personal dives. I talk more about myself and my own journey, and I would love to have you. So thank you for being here. Happy Mercury retrograde. I'll see you next week.